Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, to another episode of FTWGT Weekly. It's your boy, Lenny, joined by the man in the closet, the man in the iron mask, the man from Tuscan.
Fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I'm joined by Dante, again, as always. Till death do us part, as they say.
The man in the iron mask? Am I Iron Man?
No, that's a Leonardo DiCaprio movie, I think, actually.
Ah,
Man in the Iron Mask.
I've missed that one.
Yeah, if anybody wants to correct me if I'm wrong on that, I think I'm right.
Should I add it to my homework?
No, you don't have to. Yeah, we're back again, everybody. And this week we are going to be talking rock climbing. We're going to be talking the movie Free Solo, the award-winning documentary, as Bailey free solos her collar while scratching next to me. Nice and loud as always. But if you could, before we get into the actual documentary review, conversation, background, history, all the toppings, if you could give us a like, comment, share, tell a friend, ask a friend, put us on Reddit, some shit. We would definitely appreciate it.
Audio listeners, give us a rating. That definitely helps us boost.
Well, good point, Dante. Wherever you might be, even if you're under D's nuts. Yeah, so we are going to be talking about Alex Honnald's ascent of El Capitan in the documentary Free Solo. If you haven't checked this out yet, it is on Disney Plus. I do recommend it. I've recommended it in the past. I highly, highly recommend it after watching it again 2 different times in the past week. It's incredible. But before we get into it, we do want to give you a little bit of background into the broad spectrum of things that are rock climbing, and we're not even going to scratch the surface here, right? But we're going to just kind of hit you with a couple of small things that we have read, found that we're interested in, that have provided us maybe some context here. First and foremost, the history of rock climbing. There are 3 main sub-disciplines of rock climbing. There's bouldering, single pitch climbing, and big wall. Today, we're primarily going to talk about big wall. But Dante, along the way, you found a couple of more subdivisions of climbing as well. Could you educate us on those?
Yeah, so I had 8 of them. I had mountaineering, aid climbing, ice climbing, sport climbing, trad climbing, bouldering, free soloing, and deep water soloing.
So ice climbing. I fucking butchered this guy's name yesterday, and I still don't remember it completely. It's like Mark LaFleur or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
He is considered to be one of the smoothest climbers of all time. I believe he has passed away now, as have like a majority of people who have this background. It seems like not a majority, but a lot of people who are these level of risk takers. With that and accepting that risk, they accept the fate that a lot of them find to be. But they have videos of him scaling in like Alaska and like the side of ice faces with just the Tomb Raider Lara Croft like pickaxes just going up walls, and that's got to be the most terrifying form of climbing to me. Like the free soloing is definitely scary, and I think at its core, like you're 2,500 feet in the air, that's scary no matter what. But like relying on these pickaxes in the side of an ice wall is nuts.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the crazier types of climbing. I mean, climbing is largely based on having a good grip, and like you're just scaling an ice wall.
Yeah, and it's just like, how deep can I get this pick into the wall to guarantee my safety? And what I've found, I think, is that a decent amount of these people who end up climbing these snowy areas, it's not necessarily the climbing that kills them either. It is it's like an avalanche and shit like that takes them out. Because I believe with this guy in particular, what ends up happening to him is he climbs with a friend and gets to where they're climbing, takes a bunch of pictures from the top, sends like text to his girlfriend, like letting him know like we got to the mountain, top of the mountain safe, all good. They send pictures to their family, and then they start hiking down, and on the hike down, that's when they actually have the accident happen that takes their life.
Fuck.
The other interesting one that you had mentioned on there was Deepwater Horizon.
Deep water soloing.
That's the Mark Wahlberg movie, everybody. Deepwater soloing. What is that, Dante?
Deep water soloing is a style of outdoor climbing done on cliffs where the climber isn't using any protection, so similar to free soloing. But the big difference is they have a body of water underneath to catch their fall.
Always use protection, right, Dante?
Yes.
Wrap it twice if you got to. That's your worst nightmare, right? Like, I could never dream up a worse scenario ever for you than both rock climbing and being over a large body of water.
I mean, the heights is definitely terrifying, but I mean, the water doesn't scare me.
It does.
No, I've said this before. I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
But you never have tried, so I'm confident that based on 30 years of your life, that you can't do it.
But if a dog can be born to doggy paddle, I'm sure I could figure out the fucking doggy paddle.
No, dude, because, like, have you ever seen when a person who can't swim falls in the deep end of a pool?
I'm not your average person.
No, you are.
No.
You're below average, if anything.
Nah.
But you know what I'm talking about? When, like, a person who has no idea what the fuck they're doing in water ends up in the deep end.
Like, they're, like, flailing.
Yeah, is their instinct to, like, become buoyant in doggy paddle? Or is their instinct to stay, like, straight up in the water and just, like, flail their arms around?
Well, that just seems counterproductive, and I'd like to think that if I'm going to be scaling a mountain over a body of water, I've given some thought to what happens if I fall in that water.
But you don't think you'll be disoriented after you fall off the side of a rock face into the fucking deep-ass water?
Oh, I'll probably be flailing on my way down, but once I hit the water, it's like, all right, cool, it's showtime.
You ever heard of a belly flop, dude?
Fuck, no. I'm not belly flopping from the side of a mountain.
But you said you're flailing around.
All right, I'm not intentionally belly flopping.
So we've both found a couple of different instances of where, like, rock climbing kind of begins, and I think it's hard to follow in some instances. I know for me, the first instance I found was 1848. This guy, Sebastian Abraski, he was a local chimney sweep who enters a hilltop on the Kongenstein fortress by climbing a chimney in the sandstone plateau to avoid an entrance fee. This is now considered the first free climb in the Saxton, Switzerland climbing region, and it's now a climbing route that's called the. Why am I going to try and say this? A Britskiv came in 6. It's a 5.4 route.
Okay.
It makes shit so difficult to say in the past, dude. Everything, whenever we come on here and do anything involving, like, the 1800s, like, they just had nothing fucking simple.
I think it has less to do with the time period and the fact that we're dealing with foreign entities on languages we don't speak.
Oh, no, dude. You say potato, I say potato.
I had a different first recorded climb. So I had the first pure rock climb, which I'm assuming means the first rock climb that was done for fun, in 1869 by a guy named John Muir. He free soloed the Cathedral Peak in Yosemite.
The Cathedral Peak.
Yeah.
Okay. What else you got?
The first recorded rock climb that I was able to find was in 1492.
Sailed the ocean blue.
Hey, yo, Columbus was looking for us, and this guy was over here just climbing shit. Antoine de Ville, he was ordered by his king to scale a mountain route known as Inaccessible, which was later named Mount Nagil. He was ordered to scale the side of this mountain for tactical research to gain control of the summit.
Yeah, so I have to imagine they're at war with somebody, fighting over this land. And they look over, what was our guy's name? Seabass? What was his name?
The guy that climbed, Antoine de Ville?
Yeah, so they look over at old Antoine, and it's one of two things. He's either the bravest guy that they have,
Good old brass nuts,
or the guy that they deemed was most, like...
the dumbest one?
Well, yeah, like the easiest for them to lose, like most expendable. You know?
And like, do this or die.
And they were like, hey, man, see that rock wall over there? I know you don't have any chalk or supplies.
Well, I think he had like a grappling hook or something like that.
A grappling hook?
Yeah.
Like, what is he, fucking Batman?
Probably had a grappling hook, some axes, like... he didn't free solo it, so he did have some sort of gear.
Does it somewhere in there say he climbed the Swall with a grappling hook?
I feel like I saw that. I didn't write it
Because
in my
in my
notes.
mind, I just have him like he's standing at the ground level and he's like spinning this thing around and throwing it up and trying to hook something and get it to stay up there. So like
I mean, you know, there's way too much here. No, I'm not gonna find it.
yeah, these articles are dense, man.
Jesus Christ. Well, like the article I just pulled up, it was like an essay. It wasn't like split up into like subheadings and shit. I was like, I'm not skimming that.
I have the first female to ever summit the difficult Aiguille de Grepon in Chamonix, France. Her name is Lily Bristow.
Mm.
First female who shows up on the rock climbing accolades that I have.
Okay.
Good for her. From there on, it does seem a lot like it really starts to progress in the early 1900s into the 1910s is when rock climbing starts to really become popular. You have like metal carabiners becoming more of a thing at that point, like the metal anchor points on the wall, and that ends up like really advancing the technology and like just the people's confidence in doing this kind of thing. And from there, it's kind of off to the races.
Yeah, I think even recently they incorporated it into the Olympics.
I don't know how recent that is. I think it's been there for a little while, no? Do you have like the date on that?
I want to say it was like 2010. Give me a second.
I know I was listening to an interview and like because they were asking Alex Honnold if he would ever compete, and he was like that's not really a sport for me. Like Olympic climbing is for it's like gymnastics where it's for like 15 and 16-year-olds are the ones who dominate that field.
Sport climbing made its Olympic debut at the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
2020.
Yeah.
Shit. I wonder how much of that is to do with like how American Ninja Warrior has become such a popular thing. Because like I'm not really joking.
American Ninja Warrior has been a thing since like we were kids though.
But what I mean is like it's grown immensely in popularity over the past 5 to 10 years. And there's a large crossover between rock climbing and the American Ninja Warrior like people. The first person to win or make it to the last. Do you know what the last like stage of American Ninja Warrior is?
No, I mean, is it the warp wall?
No, that's like the last like obstacle that they generally have you beat to get into at least like through the regional qualifiers, right? Yeah. But when you get to Vegas, there's 3 stages in Vegas, and if somebody makes it through all three stages in Vegas, the last thing they have to do is called like Mount Midoriyama, I think is the name of it, and it's basically a rope, and I can't remember how long the rope is, 100 feet, 200 feet. Either way, it's a giant rope, and you have to climb it in under 30 seconds from the bottom all the way to the top. Like you're in high school gym class, you know? Something me and you never accomplished, but like they had it in gym class.
Not in my gym.
They didn't have the rope hanging from the ceiling. I thought people were fucking crazy who did that, by the way. Because like they would have this rope suspended from the ceiling of my gym. And I swear to God, there wasn't like pads underneath it if you weren't able to like if you fell when you got up there.
I feel like they definitely laid down pads. At
no,
least
dude,
I've seen in the movies.
Motherfucker, you didn't even have this shit in your school.
No.
So how do you know? You believe everything they show in movies?
Well, you know.
Yeah. Did you? So last week you believed the scene where he jumped the dirt bike off the side of.
Well, we know he actually did that.
Yeah, but like, he didn't fly through the side of a fucking train.
He could have, if he wanted to.
Doubt that.
They do sugar glass windows on the side of the train. And Tom Cruise is just like, yeah, I got that.
Yeah, but we're talking about real life. We're not talking about the movie, dude. Yeah, they just thought, I always thought that was nuts. Like and highly impressive to the kids who could and were confident enough to climb to the top of that. But yeah, either way, the first time that there was a guy in the American version of Ninja Warrior to get past the 3 stages of Vegas, it was this guy who was a very, very successful rock climber was like the first person to do it. Because like in that competition, grip strength and everything makes a huge difference. Neither here nor there. Getting on to the main subject of today's documentary, Alex Honnold. I did have a couple of cool little interesting stories about him. So in the magazine The Alpinist, which is one of the biggest rock climbing magazines in the world, in 2011 they did a profile on him, and they detail about how in 2006 nobody had actually heard of Alex Honnold, but in 2007 he free solos Yosemite's Astroman and Rostrum both in one day, and it matches this guy Peter Croft's legendary in 1987 feat. And then suddenly Honnald was pretty well known, and a year after that he goes and does the Moonlight Buttress, which is a 1,200-foot wall, a 5.12D in terms of difficulty. So like the not pro level, but this like I the step below pro level essentially. Free solos that, and then 5 months after that he does a 2,000-foot wall. He does the Half Dome, and does that without any ropes as well. And from there his fame is like skyrocketing. But come 2014, crazy enough, Dante, are you familiar with the brand of nutritional protein snack, Cliff Bar?
Yeah.
Have you ever had one before?
Not a fan.
No?
No.
That's weird. The peanut butter ones are fucking peanut butter chocolate
I just
chip.
don't really like protein
fire.
bars. It's not a thing for me.
Peanut butter chocolate chip, Dante, fire, dude.
I've had them and they're like all right, like I can eat it, but I don't want another one.
You barely have taste buds though.
Fuck's that supposed to mean?
So in 2014, Cliff Bar
better taste than
announces
you.
that they would no longer sponsor Alex Honnold, along with Dean Potter, Steph Davis, Timmy O'Neill, and Cedar Wright. And their reason being was that they concluded that these forms of sport are pushing boundaries and taking the elements of risk to a place where we as a company are no longer willing to go. So because a man...
You
like
read
this,
that off like you were trying to be a part of their press conference.
I'm just reading press releases, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But like, how crazy is it that he got canceled for doing his job?
That's wild, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he didn't say something offensive. He didn't do anything bad. He didn't go after like a group of people or attack somebody. He didn't fucking Ezra Miller anybody. And like, instead, they're just like, dude, you climb a wall without ropes? Nah, we can't have that. We can't have that. Unacceptable. You're out. Can't sponsor you.
Honestly crazy, yeah.
I don't. So Dean Potter, I believe, dies in 2015. Do you still have that up?
Yeah, May 16th of 2015.
So a year. So I guess to their credit, though, to be fair, to see the other side of this coin, they sponsor a guy and they cut ties with him in November of 2014, and a little over a year later, he passes away due to base jumping in wingsuit into the side of a fucking rock. Maybe they were vindicated.
I mean, yes.
You don't agree?
Like, still support the man.
Yeah, but like,
I'm
okay.
sure a lot of publicity came from that they could have, taken advantage of if they really want to be scummy.
All right. Do you think that that's like an acceptable thing? I mean, it's up to any company to deem what they think is good for their sponsorship. But like we just said, Alex Honnold in 2007 starts free soloing things, right?
Yeah.
It's not till 7 years later that you pull out on your sponsorship of him. Like, what changed in terms of the temperature? Like, people didn't even really know who this guy was until 2018 or 19 when this documentary gets made, right? Like, I understand that he's popular, but when they say he was popular, I believe they're talking about his popularity taking off in that community. Yes,
Yeah.
not to the grander public. I saw him in like 2018 because of like the Joe Rogan Experience, and like that's where I think he starts to gain mainstream popularity because he's been on Jimmy Kimmel. He's been on a lot of major podcasts because his documentary ends up winning Best Documentary at the Oscars the year it comes out. But in 2014, I can't imagine that there was immense level of pressure from the outside public being like, dude, you can't have people who climb without ropes and base jump as who you sponsor. Like, this guy is the perfect person to sponsor. They say that the feat that he accomplishes in the movie Free Solo is one of the greatest athletic feats of all time. And they could have had their Cliff Bar be the snack that he ate halfway up that fucking mountain to keep himself going. And instead they pull out 4 years later.
4 years earlier.
Yeah, 4 years earlier, sorry. But you know what I mean? Isn't that like, first of all, like to what you're saying about like, well, they could have like had a video with Dean Potter. It's like, well, if they had held out, they could have 3 years after that had a guy who didn't die who successfully got to the top of a fucking mountain and did something that literally no one else has ever done.
And I guess the bigger question is, who are they backing now? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You want to pull that?
oh,
Look
God.
up Cliff Bar sponsored athletes.
Thank you for giving me the search terms.
Yeah, I'm trying to dumb things down for you over here. I'm like the Google suggested text in your brain.
Meet Team Cliff. They have a soccer player. They have a Paralympian. They have a tennis player, triathlete, mountain biker, skier, mountain biker again. Another skier. All right, so they're picking all the safe ones now.
But you say safe. What I was going to say, actually, is I would venture to say...
Oh, they do have another climber, Kai Leitner.
I would venture to say that it is just as dangerous to be a mountain bike rider, like an extreme mountain bike rider. Have you ever seen the videos of like Red Bull puts out of those things?
Yeah, no, I've seen them.
Like, that is just as dangerous, no?
Fair.
You have a better chance to me of head injury riding down a mountain at a high rate of speed on a bike than you do. I mean, look, the free soloing thing is a bit crazy.
You have a greater chance of injury with mountain biking, but you have a greater chance of death with free solo climbing.
Yeah, but it's not like this guy is free soloing every single day, right? And I think we'll get into this more, but it's not like he goes into this shit unprepared to make these ascents. And I think that's where it's like, you know, when people, like companies pull out of something when they actually have no real idea what they're getting into, I feel like they just don't really understand it. So because of the shock value of a person climbing the side of a mountain, the base jumping one makes way more sense to me.
I mean, they have 3 climbers.
But what kind of climbers? Are these like speed climbers?
No, these are all pro. One of the climbers is Tommy Caldwell.
Oh, fuck. I mean, that guy's crazy too.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I wonder, dude, he's kind of a scab, huh? Jumping the fucking other side of the picket line, dude. Your boy gets cut in 2014 and you're taking money from these motherfuckers, dude. Come on.
I got that.
Come on, dude.
So, you know, somebody's got to take the money, and I'd rather it be me than some other scumbag, you know?
I wonder if he's filtering down the funds, you know? Passing it along for the ones who paved the way.
Probably not.
So before we get into the actual documentary itself, let's talk a little bit about the history of El Capitan itself. So El Capitan is a rock face that is in Yosemite National Park. It's believed that the first humans to ever lay their eyes upon El Capitan were the This is your fault.
I don't want no cheese.
Awanichi. Indians. Don't cancel me. Of the Miwok tribe. They were the first ones to see it, and like Dante's familiar with, they likened it to a wide gaping mouth. But before anyone ever found the famous granite rock face, El Capitan, it was formed from magma, white hot magma.
You good, bro? What was that?
Magma. And it was created by a collision of tectonic plates and carved out by millions of years of flowing rivers and glacial action. How cold does it get in Yosemite National Park?
This is going to sound extremely ignorant of me. Where is Yosemite National Park?
I mean, you could double check for me. It is...
I like the idea that you didn't know either.
I don't want to be wrong.
What's your guess?
Arizona. I'm wrong. It's Colorado or some shit, dude. California. Yeah.
California.
Sierra Nevada mountain range. So, like, how cold? Can you get me a temperature? What's a winter like in Yosemite National Park?
In December, they get as low as 27 degrees, it looks like.
Doesn't sound glacial, though.
No.
Maybe this is global warming, though, and it was way colder back then.
Okay.
That's probably the case.
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, let's get into the documentary itself. So, Free Solo, it is on Disney Plus. If you have not watched it, I've recommended it before. I will recommend it again. It is incredible. If you want, stop now. go watch it, come back, check out the rest of the review. If not, stick around, please. More than welcome either way. For me, this is now, I've seen it 3 times. First time was when it first came out in 2018, 2019, right around there. And in the past week, I've watched it twice. One time kind of refreshing and just kind of seeing it again because it had been so long. And then the second time taking notes and kind of going through it. Dante, this is your first time, correct?
Yeah.
First time viewing? Cool. So, for me, it's been kind of an interesting thing going and rewatching this again because I think the first time I watched it, I was very awestruck by the entire presentation of it. Just the sheer magnitude of like what this wall is and the feat. And I think the first time you watch this, you're going to come away being taken aback by the last 30 minutes of it. And I think you almost forget how captivating to me the first hour is, because the first hour is not as much the rock climbing as the last 30 minutes is the rock climbing. How do you feel there?
Not a big documentary guy, but honestly, I enjoyed it. Like, kind of, the whole getting into his head, seeing who he is as a person, and seeing why he does what he does. And then, the end of the rock climbing was definitely just, like, the camera angles and stuff they got were amazing.
Yeah, I think it hits on a lot of different levels. And I think for me, what I came away the last time of watching this is, like, understanding Alex Honnald is immensely interesting to me, and that's why they made this documentary. I think it's easy to assume when you just see what this is about that you're following a risk taker and a daredevil, and quite honestly, that had nothing to do with why they make this movie, right? In all reality, this movie started as a case study, and it started because the filmmakers, the documentary maker, was more interested with the idea that he was more afraid of finding people to climb with him than he was of climbing itself. So he was more afraid of trying to make friends when he was younger. So instead, he would just go and climb walls on his own, which leads to him getting this like level of confidence to go and like chase these dreams or aspirations that he has of climbing larger and larger walls. The guy who films it, Jimmy Chin, he even said like, I believe he said this, that this movie represents an Olympic gold level athletic completion, like competition level achievement, but where if you don't get gold, you die. Like how, like such a brutal like way to put it.
Well, he said it a lot of times, or maybe not a lot of times, but at least a couple times in the documentary too. He was like, if you ever wanted to be a perfectionist, this is the way to go about it. Like, you have no choice but to do this perfectly.
Yeah. Another thing that he says in the Vanity Fair interview, Jimmy Chan, he says it's about pure execution or certain death. But as you delve further and further into like the inner workings of Alex Honnold and try to understand his life, so since I think it was like 2000, what was it, 1 or 2, Dante? He lived in a van they said he lived in a van for 9 years because his father passes away, leaves him a little bit of like life insurance money, and he buys a van, and a van was like the most conducive thing to the fact he lives by himself, he didn't have a significant other, and he could just drive around the world climbing mountains and making a living. And he said that he would spend 88 cents on dinner every night.
Yeah, he said he was living in a Walmart parking lot, spending 88 cents on dinner every night, which you gotta assume was probably banquet dinners.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like ramen.
Ramen, I think at that time probably would have been like 25 cents.
Yeah, like 88 cents. I was like, that is wild. Dude, what do you think? Did you think anything of the food that he was making in the back of the van?
Oh, like the little like, yeah, that was kind of weird, honestly.
You're not into it?
I don't know what the first thing he put in there was. It looked like chips, but it wasn't chips.
It was, fuck it. It's eggs, chili, vegetables, and I can't remember what the other thing is either.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what it was, but I was like, not bad, I guess, if you're into that.
So yeah, he said that he was like sort of a loner his whole time growing up, but he said the good thing is like the class that he was in when he was in school was for other people that were kind of like loners in themselves, you know?
I mean, he definitely touched on some dark spots in his childhood. I remember there was one specific part that I was like, holy shit. Like, he said he had to practice learning how to hug at like age 23.
Oh, dude, I wrote that down. And you know, not to say I don't know how to hug, but I actually kind of like got it a little bit because like I don't know, I feel weird fucking hugging people and shit like that in a lot of instances myself. I know you're a big hugger. Um, I'm not wrong, right? I usually put things on you that you're not actually, but I think I'm right.
Sure.
I see you just out there hugging everybody, dude.
I'm a hug whore.
Yeah, you just hand that shit out. But yeah, I don't think like I like to like hug a ton of people, and not that I need it to be taught, but I do think. And his mother backs up the claim. She's just like, yeah, we weren't affectionate people. Like we didn't do that kind of stuff. He talks about how like his family never said that they loved each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just has this like really crazy background, and that's where I like at some point you're like, is this guy kind of a sociopath, right? Like, is there some type of disconnect between like regular emotions, with like interpersonal emotions? Like, I think he has an immense understanding of himself, but I think he is a person who has trouble or had trouble until this point in his life understanding like the concepts of people's emotions or empathizing with the emotions of people around him. And I think
I was gonna say that's probably more what it was like empathizing, because I think he understands other people's emotions. He just didn't really care about them.
Yeah, and I think that's why, to me, one of the most fascinating parts of this whole documentary is his relation to relationships and to his girlfriend during most of this movie, Sonny.
Sonny, yeah.
So, right in the very beginning of the movie, he basically tells you that. So, what was the quote from the kids in the school?
Well, they said, how does this affect your dating life? And I think he responded with, like, I'm always going to love rock climbing and choose that over a woman.
Yeah, so he says, I'm always going to choose climbing over a woman. And, like, it's a very, it's an eye-catching quote if you were just to write that down somewhere. Yeah. Like, if you had a picture of him with, like, that quote underneath him with no context to it, you'd be like, that is a crazy person. And to a point, he is a crazy person.
To a point, yeah.
But when you understand and they deep dive into this a bit more throughout the movie, not from his perspective, but from the perspective of, I think it was Tommy Caldwell, who might have been the one saying it, that one of the hardest things when you do what Alex does, which is climb without any type of protection on while you're climbing and facing death the way that he has to disconnect from the fear of that, you can't worry about the way you're going to affect other people, and to let the idea of loving somebody in would do that, right? And Sonny even says during this that she is a very affectionate and loving person, and she tells Alex that she loves him all the time. But one thing I do appreciate her as far as the female part of this is that I think she does a great job throughout this of like not really making it about her and understanding like him having his own goals and accomplishments.
So, like, that's cool, but it's almost like to her own detriment. Like, what are you doing to yourself to get through this?
Well, and we'll get to that, I think, because I do think that comes up a bit later in the documentary. But one of the things at this point that I thought was interesting, and that she just asks him, since he doesn't really like say those words so much, or hasn't throughout his life to this point, to just show her that he feels that way and let her know that he cares about her, and that's enough for her. And I appreciate that from her,
Yeah.
So before we get back to the relationship stuff, I do want to talk a little bit about Jimmy Chin. And you had mentioned the way that this movie was filmed, and I think another major takeaway from me throughout watching this is not only the toll that this has, that like going after this level of accomplishment has on Alex, the level it has on Sonny, but then on the people that are asked to film this, the level, it's hard to explain, like to a point.
The anxiety they experience.
The anxiety, the level of like commitment that it takes on their end of stuff.
Well, because this wasn't just like any Hollywood film team. For them, it wasn't all about the movie. You know what I mean? And
no.
I think that was very special, and that definitely came through in the whole production of it as well.
Yeah, and so they detail it at a lot of different points in there. But some of the things that they were worried about is, like, first and foremost, they didn't want to have him die on camera, right?
Yeah.
And like they're obviously taking on this task that it's a decently.
It's a large possibility.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentages would be, but it's not fucking 5%,
Yeah.
That he could die while doing this. Like, there's a ton of opportunity that he was going to have to die while doing it. They also had the fear of distracting him, right?
So like I noticed like when they were filming him while he was training, which first off, when you first told me about this movie, I thought he just free climbed everything. I didn't understand like the level of detail of research he goes into.
Well, so that is one of those things that he's talked about in a lot of interviews that you know, he did like a TED talk, and when he, I want to say it was Half Dome when he did that. He talks about how 2 days prior he had gone and climbed it with a partner, kind of just walking through the motions that he was going to take to climb it. And one of the things that led to it being a terrible experience for him, even though he got through it and did it, was that he decided halfway up the wall to just take a different route than what he had planned to. There was a different 300-foot route that he could take that he called it a variation, that he just decides to take, and it gets him like fucked up. And I think there's even another time, I don't know if it was the same exact time as this, but there's another interview he talks about, not the TED Talk, where he talks about essentially getting lost on the wall. And like, and he kind of likened it to like being hiking and getting stuck in the middle of the night in the woods and having no idea what direction, because you're on this side of a fucking rock wall and with a million small handholds that all look the exact same, and you don't know which one is going to be the best one, because it's like when you're doing like a maze like on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And you're drawing on the maze and you get all the way to the spot where it's a dead end. But imagine you couldn't take the pen off of the paper and you had to trace your way back.
You have to like crawl back down.
You know what I mean?
Find a different route.
Yeah, like so like every single motion, while having the tension of like if I move the wrong way I could die, it's also I could just like create more work for myself over and over again. And I think he learned so much from that yeah, like the level of detail that is in this movie that you watch him go through, and the amount of times that he climbs El Cap and just sits there with a fucking journal.
So like that was the crazy part for me. At first I was like, all right, cool, it makes sense. Like he's climbing it with a rope, and you know he's planning out his route and like getting his strategy together and practicing and all that stuff. But then when he's like sitting there like reading through the journal, all the different individual like hand placement he has to go, it's like he's reading a log of Twister. It's just like, oh, left foot here and rest and switch and finger hold here, and I was like, holy shit, he's got this all like memorized.
He can verbally walk you through a 3,000-foot ascent from the ground to the top.
Like, I don't know about you, but that was probably like the most insane turning point in the documentary for me, where I was like, holy shit, like this dude's like borderline genius.
In its own right. I mean, like memorization, I don't know if is like a genius quality.
It wasn't so much the memorization as much as like how detailed it was.
Yeah, but I think that he has to be to a point, right?
Yeah.
For the level of execution that's required for what he's doing. And I think that he says that like the reason that and we haven't even talked about this yet, right? That they do MRI scans on his brain and determine that essentially his amygdala.
Yeah, amygdala.
It doesn't, that's where the body senses fear, and basically his brain doesn't react the same as other people's does. Like he doesn't have the same reaction to fear that anybody else does. And he said a large part for why this does scare him, but the thing that takes that fear away is knowing that he has put the level of preparation that he has into this, so he's not going to get to a spot on the wall and not know what to do next. And I think when you finally see him make the summit, that's why he's able to do it at the speed. Like, dude, they're so caught off guard when he actually starts climbing towards the end of this movie at how fast he's just burning through stuff.
Yeah, they're like, oh, let me know when he's at this point. They're like, nope, he's already past it.
The other part in terms of level of detail is when they were planning the camera spots.
Yeah.
And they have to be wary of the spots where he could potentially fall. And, like, Alex kind of, like, pauses because he doesn't know how to explain it, but he was just basically like, no one wants to see that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't want you to film me there because that's an area where, like, it could be bad, you know?
Yeah. Which, another crazy thing, like, after, like, the whole MRI thing, when they were talking about, like, facing the fears and stuff, was he was saying, like, a lot of people that do this, they work on, like, suppressing their fear. And he said, you know, rather than suppressing his fear, he focused on expanding his comfort zone, which I thought was pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like, instead of worrying about like, oh, I'm just not going to be afraid of it, he was like, let me just get comfortable with it to the point where I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah. Some other obstacles that he comes into before he ever starts climbing, though, and this gets a little bit back to the relationship with the girlfriend. What did you think of the injuries?
So at that point, I thought he was gonna break up with her.
He says he was going to.
Yeah, because he was like, I've been doing this for 7 years, never got injured. Then all of a sudden, she comes along and I fall twice.
Yeah, so I actually wrote a question for you, Dante. Would you break up with a girl if she dropped you off a mountain and you broke your back?
I mean, for me, it'd be different than the way I'd expect him to respond, right? Like, that's his passion. That's something that she almost took away from him. So, yeah, I definitely would in that instance.
She dropped him off a mountain and he broke his back.
Because she forgot to check how much rope was left.
And then he's with her like a month later and he falls and fucking almost breaks his ankle.
Yeah.
And a month later, he's trying to fucking free solo El Cap.
Yeah, and everybody's telling him, like, yo, you need like 6 months of healing before you can do that again.
I wrote down, it's so crazy that he just is in a climbing boot a day after getting the diagnosis and is just climbing a wall.
With the boot? Yeah.
With the boot on. Yeah, dude. Like, so crazy, man.
Oh, God.
So, a couple other ones right here. So, as he makes the ascent on the mountain. Actually, I do want to just say one more thing about the girlfriend thing. You are right. Like, he has this thought of wanting to break up with her. I should think that's where you see a lot of growth throughout the movie for him, and the fact that they
change and be like, all right, well, she is part of my life.
Dude, you appreciate the fact that they fit a lot of not only action into an hour and a half, but like the story development of him just in their relationship of being like, I don't even know if I want a girlfriend, to being like, she, and she's the one who tells him. I think she says something along the lines of like, does it really make you any happier to not have me here? Like, what is it like? It like, and I could see from a selfish side of things, her not wanting to lose him and say that to him. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of maturity in his mind to be able to accept that, like, this is the healthiest relationship I've ever had. I'm really happy having her around me. And I could blame her for the reason these things happen. But at the same time, like, what I do for a living is inherently taking on risk. And just because this didn't happen in 7 years could have just meant that, like, I was very lucky for 7 years.
Yeah.
That this didn't happen. And, like, it was just going to happen at some point. Because even when they're asking about how he hurt his ankle, he doesn't actually know. Which they thought was weird because of how, like you brought up, his ability to memorize things and be so in tune with what he's doing on the side of a mountain and to not really understand why he fell, but to kind of just accept that it happened was a little weird to me.
And I think that was the point where he almost wanted to blame her, right?
Yeah. Because he didn't have a place to direct that frustration with, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so his first time, he actually tries about midway through the movie to ascend El Cap. And the first thing that caught me in this moment, and I don't know how you felt about it, was really, he's climbing in the dark.
Yeah.
Like the pitch black.
Because they were trying to beat, like, the sun shining on a specific point he was going to be at and blinding him, right?
Yeah. It was called the glass face. Was that what it was?
Yeah, I think so.
That part of the mountain, and you don't really see it when he's climbing in the dark so much as when he climbs it again later on. That might be, it's not the scariest part of the mountain because it's not the highest point by any means. But could you, like, how impressed were you with their ability to show you what he's holding on to?
So, like, that's where I said, like, I really love, like, the camera work. And I get that, like, a lot of it in, like, the early climbs were, like, they were literally on ropes hanging next to him. But, like, then when he does, like, the final climb and they have, like, literally telescopes attached to their cameras and they're, like, zooming right in on him, I was like, that's fucking insane. Like,
them showing, like, and they talk about this in detail, too, that when he's climbing that part of the rock, that basically, like, the handholds that he's using and the footholds that he's using are, like, the width of, like, 2 quarters stacked on their edges. And I think there was even a hold he said that was, like, trying to pull yourself up on a number 2 pencil. Those feel like similar widths. But yeah, like it's kind of a slanted slope, so I guess, like, body weight helps you a bit there because it's not, like, purely flat. Yeah. It's not straight 90 degrees. Yeah, but the amount of, And you can understand because, like, the first time he climbs it, that's the spot where he loses his confidence because I think his foot slips at one of the points.
Karate kick, yeah.
Well, no, that was way after that. The karate kick's way higher up. That's the boulder problem.
Okay.
On the glass face is where he stops and climbs back down in the dark. And he does that because his foot slips on one of the spots and he just didn't feel comfortable. And he said that if he was by himself, he probably would have kept pushing forward. But the idea of being there with people and not feeling comfortable, he just couldn't do it. And he backs off.
It was almost like he was saying, like, he was okay with the idea of death by himself, but to have somebody watch it is what frightened him.
Yeah, he said he felt the pressure of the cameras around him, which I was wondering, is that an excuse for fear? Because, again, it's kind of like what we were saying about the ankle injury, right? Like, at some point, do you have to compartmentalize and you have to try and have a reason? So instead of being like, I was afraid here, it's like, well, I didn't want to make the cameramen nervous, you know? But he says that, like, he still feels the pressure of having to complete the job. But, like, 3 months go by, he hasn't tried again. He moves into a house in Las Vegas, gets settled there.
That was a big one for me, too.
Yeah, he goes from living in the van to, like, getting a house.
Like, oh, shit, he bought a house.
Yeah.
And you know that was all for her, so it was like, oh, that's, like, real growth in their relationship, too.
Mm-hmm. And now it's just kind of another obstacle, as if it wasn't hard enough to do all this stuff, but now he has this, like, obstacle in his mind of, like, I have to complete this climb now. And it's almost a year later when he finally goes and tries to make the ascent again. Did you remember the quote from his mother around this point in the movie? She said,
oh, like, about, like, the fear of having him do this or whatever, right?
Well, so there's that, but what she would tell them when they were a kid, she would say to him that good enough isn't.
Yeah, yeah.
And that he wrote that, or he said that it led to a bottomless pit of self-loathing. It's fucked up.
I mean, but that's also, you know, one of the, like, there's always those sayings, like, people don't know how bad they stick with you, and that clearly stuck with him, and it's part of his drive for perfection.
Yeah. No, you're right. So, yeah, once he's back on the wall, he starts the actual ascent, and it's, like, going very, very smoothly for him. And the biggest part that stood out to me in this ascent is you mentioned the karate kick. So that happens at this point called the boulder problem / like Teflon corner is what they call this.
Yeah.
It's easily one of the scariest parts of the climb, and I think the part that's scary before the karate kick, they do a good job. They zoom in on him, and they show it when he's on ropes, but then they show him do it again without the ropes later in the movie, and it's the part where his thumb is in this, like, little notch on the side of the rock.
Yeah.
And he has to reach over with his right hand and now switch that little notch, that same just one finger point that's basically holding him up on the upper part of his body. He has to switch over with his right hand now to be the same one, and then do what he calls a karate kick across this large gap. Because the only other option that he has to get across this gap is if he didn't want to do the karate kick, he would have had to jump.
Yeah.
And he said that, like, jumping is one thing when you have ropes on, but to jump without the ropes would just be crazy. And he's like, not that it doesn't feel crazy to just have to stick my foot out.
It's funny to hear him say something as crazy, too.
Yeah, yeah. But he says that he does, like, leading up to that climb to do that move, he added, like, specific stretches for his legs to make sure that he was going to have the dexterity. And when he finally does that leg kick in the movie, he
started stretches like a whole year prior in preparation for that.
But dude, like the when he does that leg kick out and successfully does it, the look he gives the camera is awesome.
Yeah.
And they said that when filming the movie that they didn't know, because they don't see that footage until they're editing. So they didn't know that he did that. And they just said they were watching it back and were so fucking mind blown that at the scariest point possibly in the entire climb, that he gives this look at the camera in complete confidence and is just having fun.
Yeah.
Like, because that was the moment, from that moment on, like, there's still scary parts of the climb in front of him, but you could just feel like there was a weight that was lifted off of him in that moment. And it was like, oh, I'm halfway there. I'm good to go.
Well, because like you could
Let's keep
almost see
pushing.
like the way they were filming, like when he was doing the rope climb too. He kept practicing that same spot. Like they kept showing that him trying that and like messing it up.
Yeah.
So by the point that he hits it, he's like, "All right, cool. This was my biggest obstacle. Like the rest of this is just endurance."
You know what we haven't talked about yet?
What?
The guy in the bunny suit.
Oh, yeah. Well, it wasn't even clear if it was a bunny suit. Didn't they end up saying it was like a unicorn suit or something?
Oh yeah, they said it could have been a unicorn, but I thought they said they had a tail.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck are the odds of that?
That's just I don't know.
So everybody out there, like basically what happens is he gets like halfway up this wall, right? And what they don't show in the documentary, Dante, is he says there's 2 different spots on that wall where he had stashed water and food.
Yeah.
And he was just like, there's not really a point. Like, we only have an hour and a half in the documentary. That's not something that we need it to like include.
Yeah.
But what I assume is one of the parts where he would have been doing that is there's a part in the middle of the wall where he doesn't have to climb. He can kind of just walk like it's a bigger gap. And there's people that spent the night sleeping on the side of the mountain. Like literally on the side of this rock face.
Yeah.
And the guy's sleeping in a fucking bunny suit.
Like
as they're filming this documentary.
Suit,
yeah. It's almost like I was trying to figure out, like, is this guy a plant? You know?
Yeah.
Like, was this staged? Which I know it isn't, because, like, it doesn't fit in the scheme of the documentary for it to be staged. It just so happened to be the day that this guy is free soloing this mountain. He walks by this guy in a bunny suit and it's like, who's crazier here? The guy who has no ropes on climbing El Capitan, or the guy in a bunny suit who climbed up halfway to spend the night, bang his girl in a furry costume.
Oh, it's a unicorn suit. I just confirmed.
Oh, so he's a brony.
Honestly? Yeah.
Kind of is, right? As far as visuals are concerned, I found to be the best camera work in the entire ascent of Capitan to be the traverse. Are you familiar with what part of the rock wall that was?
No.
So it's towards the top. And it's the part where they say, like, he's the most exposed on the mountain he could be.
Okay.
And he has to, like, so he's climbing upward, and then he has to kind of go to the left and, like, around, like, this lip on the rock. And it's just the visuals, because at this point he's, like, 2,500 feet off the ground. And the visuals of it, there's not really rock underneath him at this point. It's kind of an overhang. And you just get the immensity of, like, the size of what he's doing in these, like, landscapes behind him that are, like, so fucking beautiful in every direction that although it's something that none of us could ever achieve, I can appreciate why you would do stuff like this.
Yeah.
You know, because he has a perspective that no one will ever have, you know?
Maybe not no one, but very few people, yeah.
I mean, like, so... And I guess, like, he doesn't even get to, like, stop and look at it necessarily.
Yeah.
But...
Well, that's not even why he's doing it.
No.
His excitement is purely from the climb itself.
Yeah, the accomplishment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, like, watching it, to me, and so what I think they ended up doing, right, is, so they still had people hang on wires at certain parts. They had staged cameras, I believe, on parts of the wall. And then, yeah, you talked about this, Dante. Can you talk a little bit about that camera that guy's using, who I think you live vicariously through the guy who's on the ground filming this more than anybody else during this ascent.
Well, because even more, like, captivating than the camera is his reactions while he's recording.
Yeah, like, he can't even look at a lot of points.
Yeah. Like, he keeps looking away, and he's like, fuck, I'm so nervous. Like, what if he dies? Like...
But so,
and, like, the crazy thing is, like, the entire crew, they're all climbers.
You're a camera guy to a point, Dante,
to
right?
A point, yeah.
What did you think of just the actual piece of hardware?
Honestly, like, that lens alone just looked nuts. I didn't know they made lens. Like, it literally looked like a camera attached to a telescope.
Yeah, like, that has got to be the most impressive DSLR setup I've ever seen in my life.
And, like, then to see the result, like, how far away he actually was, and then how close in he was able to record.
In the detail.
Yes.
At that distance. What do you think the cost of that lens is?
The lens alone, probably, like, over $50K.
Do you think he rents or owns?
I mean, how often are they filming stuff like this? Are they an actual film crew? I think they were just climbers that happen to be
Well, so Jimmy
videographers,
Chin
right?
is a filmmaker.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure of that. Although him and Alex have climbed together for a long time, I believe he is a filmmaker.
Okay.
Um,
I just don't see like maybe the prolonged need for them to have that kind of equipment, so I feel like they probably rented it.
yeah, I was just like, yeah, I was blown away by that, and then yeah, I think it added so much. Like that particular guy added a lot to that because he was just like he couldn't look at so many points of it and like the stress that he was feeling. And then as now we're getting to the top of the mountain, and if we could touch on it, the immense relief, like, and it's not the relief of Alex when he gets to the top of the mountain. Like for him, it was gratifying. He was accomplished. Like he felt all of those things.
Like what he kept saying was delightful or something like
Yeah,
that.
he was delighted.
Delighted.
I'm
yeah.
just like I feel delighted right now.
Yeah.
But for these guys, it's like they hadn't breathed for the 3 hours.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like Jimmy's on the top of the mountain, like exhaling and being like, holy shit, it's over.
Yeah.
And the guy on the ground's like, I'm never doing this again.
Yo, legit.
Like he's like, I haven't stepped foot off the ground.
Yeah.
I will never do this again.
No.
And I think like for every one of us, it was like, yeah, no, dude, I never want to fucking do that again.
Bro,
Like,
I mean, like, it was easier for us as viewers because, like, the movie's made. We know he makes it, right?
mm-hmm.
But for them to stand there for 4 hours recording and being like, fuck, what if he falls? What if he falls? What if he falls?
I think the good thing for them is the way he climbed that day. I mean, he said it was the best he's ever climbed in his life, and it's the best day of his life to this point.
Yeah.
Like he's never been more locked in than he was on that climb. And I think that the one solace that they probably had, although they still had to be on like like holding their breath that nothing bad was going to happen because all it takes is one like rock to move or like one bad grip, all that stuff. But yeah, they had to know it was good just at the pace that he was moving at and the confidence in which he was moving with. And when he gets to the top of the wall, he almost says it's like he's like it went so smooth that it's almost like what did he say? It's like I forgot my rope in my rack.
Yeah.
Was the line. Which this is not the same thing, but so I read this story this week. So I was watching the movie The Outlaws on Netflix, right? And you know how like you have these weird timing where like two things happen at the same time that are the same exact kind of thing, but it makes no sense how it lined up this way. So I'm watching The Outlaws on Netflix. It's the Adam Devine and Pierce Brosnan comedy that just came out on there.
Okay.
And there's a scene where they take Adam Devine's character skydiving, right? And at the same exact time I'm watching that, I happen to be reading something on Twitter about this guy who has skydived over 400 times in his life, who was up in the air and was so excited to jump out of the plane that he grabs his cell phone because he's going to film himself on the way down, grabs his cell phone, Dante, and jumps out of the plane. He didn't grab the parachute.
Oh, shit.
So he was at this level of comfort in this thing that is for any normal person like ourselves, right? Would be something we would triple, double, quadruple, wouldn't even fucking do it. But like, if we were to have to do it, we'd have to check everything a million times over. But this guy was so comfortable and confident in jumping out of planes that it led to his death because he just took for granted that he would have his fucking parachute on him, grabs his phone and jumps out of the plane. Obviously falls to his death. And I just say that to be like, there's a story about Alex Honnald that this girl, Emily Harrington, who's also a climber, she had a movie come out about her kind of recently, like a little bit after Free Solo. Yeah. She climbs with Alex, and there's a story that she told about him that, or maybe she was on Rogan, and Rogan was saying that Alex Honnald told him this story, that one day he started climbing, and he was climbing with ropes. Or no, he wasn't. He was free soloing, but he got like a quarter of the way up the wall that he was climbing, and had just forgot his chalk.
Oh, shit.
And he ends up coming across these people who are also climbing that day, but they're climbing on ropes. And he just climbs past them with no ropes attached to him and looks over at him and he's like, hey, man, like, I forgot my chalk. Do you mind if I, like, borrow some from you? And they give him a bag of chalk, and he climbs the rest of the wall, leaves the chalk at the top of the mountain for them, and just goes on about his day.
Insane.
Right? But it's like this level of like confidence and expertise, like still for these guys, even leads to these moments where they just forget the rope in the rack, so to speak. You know,
I can just imagine how casual that experience was for him too. Like, fuck, I don't have chalk. Oh, there's some climbers. Hey, bro, can I borrow some chalk?
Yeah, and they just hand him a bag while
like
he's
as
like
casually as like a smoker would be like, hey, you got a light?
Yeah, exactly. Like hundreds of feet in the fucking air, and it's like, hey man, I need this thing that keeps it so your hands don't get torn apart. Because he was talking about like, so when one of the biggest parts, I think they call it the ascent in this movie, right?
Is
like,
that what the chalk's for? To keep their hands from tearing apart? I thought it was more for grip.
It's grip and protection for the hands. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people, like he was saying, beginners should climb the gloves because, like, what I was gonna say is there's a part where it's a straight ascent. You know the part I'm talking about? It's like the crack in the wall.
Yeah.
And all that's keeping him in there isn't that he's holding on to anything.
No, it's just the tension of his body on both sides of the crack.
They jam their hands so far into this fucking crack that they can't move, and that's the anchor point holding them in there.
Yeah.
Which is, he said he has thick skin, and that's what has allowed him to be so good at this shit at this point. Fucking wild, man. Yeah, so I think we've pretty much hit everything. I think I got through most of my notes that I had written down here.
Yeah.
I think that if you haven't seen this, even if you watched all the way through this, I don't think that like talking about this really does it justice to understand like the level of discomfort you feel watching this to a point. Like, when I say palms are sweaty, like, that is a legitimate review. Like, I think every time I watch this, there's still a level of discomfort with seeing, like, what he's doing. But then marveling at the accomplishment of it, it's probably... I'm not a documentary guy either, and this has got to be up there for me as, like, my favorite documentary of all time.
Yeah.
And I if anybody has any more, like... documentaries, like 30 for 30s are great, all of this stuff, but like anything that's like this where it is about more of a physical accomplishment. I think The Alpinist is a documentary as well that maybe we could do at some point. It's either that or it's like the Seven Slopes or something.
I think I was saying there's also like a Donwell movie too.
Yeah, the Donwell's the other one, which I think is the guy Tommy Caldwell.
Yep.
But there's one about the guy who climbs the like 7 highest mountains in the world or something.
The 7 Peaks, right?
7 Peaks, yeah. Yeah, that's another one I think I'd want to watch. But if there's any recommendations that people have out there of more of these, I'd be more than happy to hear about them. And if you could let us know where to watch them, I'd definitely want to check them out. But yeah, let us know if you've seen this before, what you think. If you're more interested to watch it now, like, please let us know as well. But let's get into, more of our traditional show. There's not a ton going on in the world of pop culture right now. Obviously, the major talk in town is a writer's strike, actor's strike. Dante, you'd be interested to hear there's a video of Lizzie McGuire, Hillary Duff singing the song from Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah.
On the streets of California.
Why would I particularly be interested?
You loved Lizzie McGuire.
Sure. Past tense.
Yeah, but you still would like to hear her sing the songs from back in the day. She probably hasn't done that in years.
I care less about the songs, but she's good to look at.
So, box office. I had one question before box office that like it relates to box office, but I wanted to ask you for a prediction on something. Okay?
Yeah.
So, The Dark Knight came out, I think it's like 15 years ago today, 20 years ago today, something like that.
Okay.
Could you guess the domestic opening weekend for that movie in the box office?
When did that come out?
Fuck.
That would have been like 2010.
Give me a second and I can tell you. I think it's 2008, in all honesty. Because 15 years would have been...
Yeah, 2008. Yeah. Okay, so I'd say probably like 120 mil.
More.
Like 170?
158.
Okay.
Domestic opening weekend.
Wow.
It made $1.006 billion.
Jesus Christ.
I believe budget was 180 million, so they basically cleared it in week 1. Also, what came out that weekend, Dante, was the movie Mamma Mia, which made 27 million.
My, how could I forget?
and earned $611 million box office from Mamma Mia. Crazy.
Christ.
But let's go current day. What do we got?
So number one in the box office this weekend, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Okay, domestically did on a 5-day weekend, 80 mil.
78, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to count just the traditional weekend, 54, which doesn't sound great.
Yeah, so this is going to be like the highest opening weekend for a Mission Impossible movie, but obviously not what they want. I would say they wanted to get more out of that. I'm going back and forth on what I think the long-term success of Mission Impossible will be. Because I thought we had another week until Barbie and Oppenheimer. I didn't realize that was this Thursday, but it is this Thursday.
Yeah.
But
they essentially only had really, a week and a half, just shy of 2 weeks.
yeah, but like I guess the thing is, like, Oppenheimer isn't a action movie. It's going to be a visually stunning movie in a way, but it's not an action movie, right?
Yeah.
Barbie is a different demographic. So do you think there's still hope for... Do you think that the next week's drop-off for Mission Impossible will be 50% or lower? Or will it be 50% or higher?
I'm going to take the over on that.
You think it's going to be higher?
Yeah.
I'm torn.
I don't want it to be, but I think it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that if I was like betting on it, I would bet on it being higher than 50%.
Yeah.
But I could see it being more like 40 to 45. I'm optimistic, like I'm hopeful, early tracking right now, Barbie's increasing. So last week, Barbie was at an estimated 93 million estimated box office. Today, I read that the estimated box office for it is actually like 105 million.
Jesus Christ. I mean, again, kids movies, kids aren't in school, like.
But I don't think that movie's a kids movie either. Like, I think that the thing that's driving it is more like memes and like I think it's gonna be memes and like some adults.
I think it's more of a family movie, but you got to think about there's definitely a lot of little girls out there that love Barbie, and there's a Barbie movie coming out.
Yeah, I think it's just like they're definitely reaping the benefits of touching every demographic possible. Because the thing about Oppenheimer, the thing about Mission Impossible, they're going to skew very heavily towards males. The same way that like Indiana Jones was only like it's moderate. It's a huge flop, by the way. I think it just hit 300 million for box office. But it only skewed towards one demographic. And when you can't touch multiple demographics, you can't make those huge box offices any longer. And I think a movie like Barbie, the reason it's going to be so successful is because adults will see it, kids will see it, adults with kids will see it, women are going to see it in groups. I'm a guy, I'm going to see it. I'm going to go by myself. I'm actually a little worried because I bought a 4:00 ticket, and like now that you say that, it's like
you're going to be there with a bunch of little girls.
Yeah, I am just inviting myself to a movie that's just going to be me and like a million fucking teenage girls and like fucking children.
I mean, so like what the projections are equating it to is it's going to have a similar demographic to Little Mermaid. And Little Mermaid opened at 95 mil.
Yeah, I mean, fuck Little Mermaid, though.
Sure. Regardless of that, like, where we're just basing it on the demographic and what the opening weekend's going to be like.
I mean, Oppenheimer is estimated around like 40 to 50 million.
Yep.
I think that's largely going to be because a lot of their tickets are going to be more expensive. Due to IMAX, things like that, and that's what they're going to drive a lot of people to go see it in IMAX.
It's not going to be exclusively IMAX, though, is it?
No, but but predominantly IMAX is the way people are going to view this movie.
Yeah,
or that's the way it's being intended on being viewed. I was amazed at how little 70 millimeter IMAX theaters there are in the United States for people to view this movie for what it was filmed on.
Yeah.
You would just think that would be a more prevalent thing if you're going to invest so much into it. Have you seen any of the pictures? I know we had talked about it on here. The size of the film rail for
I remember you telling me it was like a mile long or something.
Yeah, but dude, there's actual pictures of it now. It's fucking crazy, dude. It's so big. Yeah, so big weekend coming up. I mean, like this is the month that we've been talking about for the summer. Like this is going to be the month for the movie theater. It's kind of crazy that like the duality of it all, that the biggest movies of the year are coming out right now, and at the same time you have this huge writer and actor strike going on. That's just kind of a funny little like correlation that's happening there. Is there anything else from a box office perspective that's surprising or interesting, Dante? I know that that horror movie Insidious is just making crazy money. I think it's at 120 million overall gross, and it's only on like a $16 million budget right now.
Hold on, no, it's not 120 million.
That's the total.
Yeah, 124 worldwide. Gotcha.
Yeah, like that's pretty fucking awesome for them.
That's way up there. Yeah. Sound of Freedom is also still fucking pulling money apparently.
I'm hearing mixed things on it too, like because obviously like everybody's trashing it because of the controversy, but I heard the movie isn't actually like terrible.
Okay.
Not something I think I'll ever see, but that is somewhat interesting to me. All right, let's rattle off a couple quick like pop culture things though, okay? So did you hear about the announce that in November on Amazon Prime a TV series for Mr. and Mrs. Smith is coming out?
I think I remember you telling me about that.
It's fucking weird. Donald Glover's going to be in it.
Really?
Yeah. Maya Erskine, who I don't know, but is going to be the female lead. Do you think this is necessary?
I mean, we've talked about it before. There's no more original ideas. Everything's remakes. So like,
this movie came out in 2005, though. No.
Sorry, 1 second. Yes.
I just don't understand why. Like this soon we need it just didn't seem like something anybody clamored for. Like, I'd really like to see another variation on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And why can't you just make a movie? Like, there's another movie called The Killers that's Ashton Kutcher and Katherine Heigl that is very much the same thing as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's just not called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. There was also This Means War, which is like a Tom Hardy and Chris Pine, Reese Witherspoon movie. What I guess I'm saying is, like, this isn't a plot device that hasn't been done before, and why do you have to call it Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Why can't you just write a story similar to that and call it your own fucking name and create your own characters?
Because I think they expect to pull more viewership by giving it a familiar name and then throwing Brad and Angelina in there.
Yeah, but at the same time, Amazon right now has this show called Citadel that's produced by the Russo brothers, like the people who are the masterminds of like the Avengers saga. And it's the most expensive TV show on streaming right now. It costs like $300 million for 6 episodes. Christ. And it didn't even crack the top 10 on Nielsen's top watched of the year so far for original content.
Damn.
So it's like Amazon, it's like Jack Ryan and Jack Reacher or John Reacher. Either way, both are good shows, right? But they didn't like break the world in fucking terms of viewership. I don't think the Lord of the Rings movie has panned out, or the Lord of the Rings show has panned out to like net them this immense gains. Like, people have Amazon. I don't think they're getting more people based on the stuff that they're putting on their streaming network, right? Like, the world just has Amazon because they need Amazon.
I do like that they're trying to add value to their streaming platform, though.
I guess, man. Are you watching half of these shows?
No.
So why do you like it?
I might.
All right. Like, I just don't understand that. Where it's like, well, I appreciate that they're doing this work, but I'll never watch any of it. Then it's pointless. Then it's just a waste of money.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why they thought that Citadel show would do so well to invest that much money in it either, to be honest.
So, like, what's the whole plot of this show? Because now I'm seeing that they have Donald Glover cast as John Smith. How is he supposed to be Brad Pitt?
He's not Brad Pitt. They're not. What do you mean?
What? Oh, that's like their code names. Gotcha.
I mean, in like it's their own variation on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He's not playing Brad Pitt. She's not playing Angelina Jolie. It was more
confusing to me because Brad and Angelina are going to be in it.
No, they're not.
They're showing on the cast.
You really believe that? I think we catch them for a couple minutes in like an episode.
Well, it'll be like that. It'll be like a flashback sequence, but like
it'll be like that '90s show having like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis in there for an episode.
Okay.
You know.
I just wonder how they tie them in, though.
You know yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's operative code names like James Bond.
Yeah, like 007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is now a girl.
Was there anything else? Oh, so we watched a trailer for The Creator.
Yeah.
Hey, this was the first you had heard of this movie?
Yes.
I had seen a trailer a few months back. I'm very interested. Do you know who the main actor is in that, Dante?
That's Denzel's guy, right?
Yeah, Denzel's son, not his guy.
Yeah,
his child.
whatever.
John David Washington.
Yeah.
I think this movie looks very interesting.
My whole thought watching that trailer was iRobot 2 ?
Kind of. I like the idea of the kid being like the thing that like they have to try and kill to stop this huge war because it like.
Of course, that would be the secret weapon. Like, oh, we're gonna go destroy the secret weapon. Oh shit, it's a kid, but it's not a kid. But now you got sympathy for it looking
exactly.
like a kid.
Yeah, I think that works. I read that the budget's like very low for this movie. It was only like $85 million.
Really, for a movie like this?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw something today about that. And I thought that was very interesting because that's if that is true, this movie should be profitable.
Production budget of $86 million. Yeah.
Wow. It looks good enough that I think that this movie should be a success.
Yeah.
I think that there's still enough interest in like Denzel's kid too, like just on name value alone, that'll draw some viewers. And they do that trope that has been successful where they take a older song and slow it down and throw it over the trailer, and I think it works.
Cut. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it worked. So yeah, I enjoyed that trailer. I'm looking forward to the movie. It's good.
Yeah.
So we already talked about it. This week we have Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out. Which one are you gonna see?
I'm probably more inclined to see Barbie.
Okay. Well, I am also gonna see Barbie. Oppenheimer, I do think I'm gonna make the commitment to see it in the movie theater, but it does feel like a big task. 3 hours, 3.5 with trailers. That's a big fucking chunk of your day.
I mean, catch me on a day I got nothing to do, but
yeah, but to get to good movie theaters for me or for you, 3 hours plus half an hour for trailers plus a half an hour for commute. So you're committing almost 5 hours of your day to and from.
Yeah.
To going to the movies, like that's a lot, dude. That's a lot to ask anybody.
I'm working a shift.
Yeah, dead ass, dude. Anything else coming out or that you're going to be watching?
No.
I wanted to put a quick highlight on one other thing that I saw came out this past weekend. It's another one of those sci-fi style bad movies that was direct released to Vudu. It's called The Flood. It stars Casper Van Diem of Starship Trooper fame.
Is it The Flood from Halo?
Nope, it's just called The Flood. And it's the synopsis is after a massive hurricane floods Louisiana, it unleashes a threat even deadlier than the rising water level, a relentless horde of giant hungry alligators. When a group of in-transit prisoners and their security guards seek shelter in a local prison, they become the prey of a flesh-eating attacker.
So this is right up your alley. This is like one of those shark movies, but with alligators.
Yeah. To survive, the prisoners and guards must fight together in this action thriller packed with slithery scares and jaw-clenching suspense.
So you bought it already?
I have not bought it because I kind of want to wait till the week that it... Like, if I wait 2 weeks, it'll be on sale for like $5, and I'll feel way more comfortable buying it.
Gotcha.
But I will be watching this at some point, and I would love to know if anybody else is as interested as I am. Currently a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, but who the fuck do they know? Or what the fuck do they know?
Who the fuck do they know?
That too, those motherfuckers.
Audience score 50%, though.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. That's got to be good then.
Yeah.
So, if that's all, we will bid you all adieu.
Adieu.
If you could, like we said earlier, please drop a like down below. Give us a rating if you do listen. That was a good call out, Dante. I don't know if you did this on this recording, because if anybody didn't know, we had to record this twice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, that happened.
Hey, it ain't us if there ain't no technical difficulties, huh?
But yeah, it's been a great episode. Let us know what you think of Free Solo when you do go ahead and watch it. Give us a like, comment, share, subscribe. You can find us anywhere audio podcasts are provided. I have mentioned my nuts, Dante's nuts, and D's nuts.
Bro, leave them out of here.
Leave yours out of here?
Yeah.
All right. No, they're already in. They're in the closet, just like you.
You motherfucker.
Oh, I thought you thought that wasn't going to find its way in here. We're also on YouTube, Good Taste Pod or FTW GT on TikTok. Oh, big. Nah, never mind. We're not even. We're gonna miss this, but we're gonna be streaming this week. That is a plan of ours.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll have some videos from that posted later, since that's probably gonna happen tomorrow before this ever posts. I think we hit everything. See you later. Peace.
Toodaloo.
Love you. Bang, bang, bang.
Ah, the gunshots. Dude, how many gunshots am I gonna have to sink in? I might just leave your voice this time.
For those with good taste.